Alright, putting up the best zombies map of all time. Let's go. You know, man, I wish people would respect Voyage more, you know? Honestly, just they don't understand. I don't think they have the perspective of how this map really is. Genuinely, I don't think anyone knows of the My Heart Will Go On Easter egg song. Just amateurs, dude. Like, James Cameron would be so proud of this, dude. Genuinely. I don't know why everyone hates on him. It's just, it makes no sense at all. Like, it's so easy. It's such an easy map. Like, I can totally do the Easter egg in like 30 minutes tops. Not even. I bet I can do it in 5 minutes. That's how good I am, you know? It's just, people just don't respect this map as much. Gosh, it's like people just don't like the map design and just super tight. But like, that's what makes a good zombies map, you know? Just making it like as crowded as you can. Or just make it complicated, like my second favorite map, Blood of the Dead. Oh my god, dude. It's just so good. Like, they just don't understand what a masterpiece is. It's like saying Descent is a top 5 zombies map, dude. It's just so good. I think Descent is like a top 3, actually. It's just so good, you know? You have like that DJ Oz, whatever. You have like the Trident thing. And that like really lame resort. Yeah, that's such a good map, guy. Like, it's such a good map. What happened? My power go out? Dude, now I have to replay my favorite zombies map of all time, dude. Gosh. Well, gotta turn on the power, I guess. What was that noise? If I've watched enough movies, I should know that I should prepare for what's about to happen. I know exactly what to do. Wait, I don't ever remember owning a revolver. Whatever. Yeah, ready for some action. Whoa, that's so cool. Nice decor. I remember that being in here. Yeah, whatever, I'm too cool. Yeah. Okay, joke's over. It's done. What do we have? Another one of those wall decor things. Huh, whatever. Hey, look, there's power. Looks like someone already was trying to fiddle with it. If I remember correctly, this one. Pa. I think when I shut it. Alright, now time to play my favorite zombies map of all time. Hello! What the heck? Whoa. So you must be the thing that's making all this noise.
You look friendly.
Kinda cute. Mystery box. What? Why is it so small? Alright, let's try it. What the heck? How would I even fit in there? Okay, what is this? How did this get in there? Wait a second. This looks like 3 gun. Wait.
Fetch me their souls!
Oh, come on! Yeah. Hello and welcome back to Scream Films, where we usually analyze movies and genres and talk about them, but as always, I'm doing something different in every video. I've had this idea in my head for quite some time now, but just didn't know how to act upon it, and then just recently, I just decided to do it pretty much. For those that don't know or can't tell, I am a pretty big fan of Call of Duty Zombies. I mean, if you need an example, I got perks. I got the way gun. I got 2 way guns. I mean, I got 2 monkey bombs.
2 of them. I own all the Treyarch-based games except for Call of Duty 3, but that's an old game anyway, so obviously I don't have it. I've pretty much played all of the Treyarch-based maps, except for some exceptions. I've dipped my toes into Black Ops 4 and Black Ops 2 a little bit. DLC is hard to come by in 2024, it's also expensive, so there's no really point of buying them, except for buying them. I don't know. I follow a good chunk of the zombie YouTubers on YouTube and whatnot, on Instagram, whatever, so I'm in that loop of zombies, so I know what's happening pretty much whenever. I know a good chunk of the zombies lore, which is very important for this video, so lucky to have that knowledge. If you couldn't tell by the title of this video, I'm going to try my darndest to make the zombie story work within the film industry, basically. So either that's a film, TV show, whatever, try to implicate it to make it work so people can enjoy it and bring in some other people who don't know about it. I have a list of do's and don'ts. They're going to be in a little bit of random order, so be prepared. Alright, to start off our list, the first thing that we have is who should be running the show, basically. I've come to a unanimous decision, totally didn't think of it first try. I generally think HBO Max, or HBO, however you want to call it, Max, it's the same thing. I feel like they should take the project and work with it. I say that only because of how The Last of Us was. Basically, a lot of people liked The Last of Us show. I technically haven't watched it yet, but you know, I've seen some parts of it, so I understand like the quality of it. I think it's really good. Looks pretty decent. I will watch it eventually. A big thing with this one is don't let zombie YouTubers touch it. The last time we tried doing that, we had the 115 movie, and that didn't work out at all. It didn't even be made. So don't let zombie YouTubers touch the filming of it. They can be a big inspiration of like getting like a sit down talk to and correspond with ideas what should be in it or whatnot, but I think that's pretty much the best that YouTubers got is just pinpointing ideas. Next, keep it interesting for new people, so don't just overload everything in the first episode and make it super confusing. Slowly add important details into each episode, what builds up and the audience understands what's happening. I do that with the episodes, so be prepared for that. Next, we have Treyarch help with the screenwriting. It's going to be a little bit hard if they're deciding to do it now because Treyarch's hands are full with this year's Call of Duty and next year's Call of Duty, so either have them do it or obviously we can wait, but either have, you know, Jimmy Zielinski or Jason Blundell work on this project too. Have them kind of pinpoint ideas, or honestly just understand the lore. So have someone understand it, or actually play the maps, understand the details of everything, but it actually looks and feels authentic. Also, don't pull a Halo TV show. That's kind of where I was going to at that. Have people who have obviously played the games and touched them so they understand everything. Next is kind of how it should be formatted. I would suggest doing a TV show and miniseries combo of the duration of a miniseries, but the somewhat decency episode lengths of TV. So what I mean by that is the time duration is of a miniseries, so like hour 40 plus minutes, something that's long, and then quantity of episodes in each season. So it's not just like 6 episodes, pack it up next series. Keep it kind of then that combination so it's easier to follow, I guess. Basically, as well, this would help with multiple seasons, and then I would suggest each season is a game, except for Season 1. I'll get to that in a second. So that's basically World at War to Black Ops 4. I think Season 1 should be World at War to Black Ops 1, only because World at War only has 4 maps in it, and that's only 4 episodes. So I would suggest combining World at War and Black Ops 1 together, because they also blend in with the same story, just kind of goes through evenly and it just works. I would suggest each map obviously being an episode. Here you can add the Easter egg stuff into it, so actually follow the characters doing maybe like some of the Easter egg, not all of it, but to kind of pinpoint specific things, you know, just to pinpoint everything together so it feels like a zombies map. And then also add depth into the episode, that helps too. We'll get into what will help with the depth of the story. So next we'll slowly add Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man into the lore, mostly because it's part of the newer lore. It's best to slowly introduce them, and then so the audience can get pinpoint ideas of, oh, that happened there, or I can see how that began somewhere. We're not trying to confuse the audience. We want to keep it simple, at least throughout the first 2 seasons, of just the one story part of Germans made big mistakes in science instead of, oh yeah, by the way, Cthulhu stuff. So we want to keep it simplified for that. And then one big thing that I kind of thought of is make the zombies actually look like how they would be in the map, so they correspond with the same maps. So like with the, let's say on the Doris episode, the zombies are, you know, German uniform, maybe some lab coats in there. With Ascension, you have some scientists, you have cosmonauts, and then just that kind of gritty detail that makes them look like they were there before. Man, they're actually important to the location. So next, it's kind of important, we're going to turn the radios into visual. So what I mean by that is, for those that have never played a zombies map, there are radios around the map that you can interact with, and then you get a little bit of lore with it. Usually that's just kind of extra stuff that they added. I feel like if we turn those into reality, those would help make people understand the story more. So next, we're gonna connect maps with each other. So one thing that I've thought of is the ending of the moon map, or of Moon, of how the characters teleport back to Broken Arrow. They teleport through that, and we can actually intertwine maps with the season, so people they see locations or they know of it, and then it's easier to pinpoint stuff with a broader audience who don't know what's happening. Next, obviously, I've been kind of talking about just keep it simple in a way. You know, we have The Last of Us, The Walking Dead, whenever it was good, to kind of base it off of that. So we have the idea of The Walking Dead there, I guess, and then somewhat of the same storytelling as The Last of Us, where it's super simplified and that anyone who hasn't played the game can follow through. Next, which is really important, I mean all of these are important, but one that actually feels important, especially to people who are fans of zombies and they watch this, just make it feel like the game. It's pretty much it. So what I mean by that is have the chatter of the characters, like how they would in the map, have them interact with each other, feel that bond that they have, just make it seem like they like each other or hate each other, however you want to do it. Definitely have shots of people, you know, grabbing perks, hitting the mystery box, and then as well, instead of just pulling out random guns, have the guns that are in the maps and base it off of that. So like with the World at War episodes, you have World War II guns, and then once you hit Kino and you're in Black Ops 1, you have weapons from that game, just to make it more like understanding that, oh yeah, they've went through time or whatever. We'll get to that in a minute for those that don't understand. As well as weapons, have the wonder weapons that are in the map in the episode, make it intriguing, give it a unique style, unique for the episode. And then, I think for me most important, have the Easter egg songs in this. I think just slightly having them, like, somewhat throughout an episode, if you're like, okay, we need a shot of them all surrounded and they need to just kill a bunch of zombies. Have, like, the Easter egg song playing, you know, give it that feel of kick-assery. Is that even a word? It is a word. It's a word today. So make it feel super authentic, which can have people make everyone enjoy. Next, we're gonna keep it kind of dark, but yet colorful. So what I mean is you have a dark atmosphere, but it's super colorful. I would say a good dark setting, like a dark atmosphere, is like Nocturne Totem, is you get that edgy vibe of it, but then you also have the colors of like Revelations or something where it's just colors everywhere. So it's not just one tone, so it doesn't look bad. Another key point that will work with the story is kind of treating the story kind of like Lost. We have our characters, and then throughout each episode or something, we'll have like a scene of them in the past doing something which leaded up to the instance of what's happening now. And then last on this list that I have made, make it gory. We want to make the zombies look terrifying and scary, so they have a reason to be an enemy of the characters. Walking Dead. Make the zombies look gnarly as they do in The Walking Dead. Make a zombie or two look actually like super terrifying. Like Walking Dead, you know, I think the only one that actually comes to mind is the well zombie, but that's only because that scene's a little, it's a scene. But you know, you also have like in Day of the Dead, where you have, is it like the Dr. Driller, whatever that zombie is, or it's like his jaws all messed up. Have it something like that where people can see the gnarliness of it, and it actually just, it keeps in their head, and they're like, oh, I remember that. That looked cool, or that looked scary to me. Just make it more tone to what it should be. And then that's basically all that I had for pinpoints. Obviously, that list can be 10 times longer, since this is just a quick video of how it can work, or not how it works, how it will work. It's just adding a few things that, just to keep the idea going and make it seem plausible. So now I'm gonna go through what season 1 should be, the name of it or something, kind of get it character. Then I'm gonna go through what kind of happens and whatnot. For those that think that, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, of, oh, you don't have the knowledge, I straight up, when making this script, I watched like almost half of the main storyline video. For those that don't know, basically, there's a video on YouTube of the entire zombie storyline. It's like 6 hours long. I watched like half of that to double check all of my information. I think I'm pretty qualified to get at least season 1 down. So, without further ado, let's begin. But before we begin, by the way, this is not a sponsorship. I'm not sponsored by anyone or have the subscribers to be sponsored. I just wanted to address a few things. First, I hope you're having a good day so far. Second, I'm using a new mic, so hopefully it sounds way better than the rest of the video with this mic than my old mic. After hearing the first part of the video, I decided to just finally upgrade the quality of my mic because it was getting annoying to me, but it turned out fine after doing the World at War stuff, heading on to Black Ops 1, so, whatever. Finally, I'm going to be mostly using photos to tell the story in a way. It's mostly to hide the fact that I'm reading off my script while on camera and my camera's catching me staring at my script. Usually this would be the part where I would also use good footage, but I couldn't really find any that fit kind of context-wise. There's nothing that I can use for context, really. So I just used pictures and kind of had words up, kind of like talking about dialogue. If you're also wondering why I'm not really using any like gaming footage, I'm a little new to OBS, so I don't really have it down. I'm still fiddling with that, but I do have photos from some of the games that I did play on Black Ops 3 because Black Ops 3 has the best quality and best coloring on all these older maps. So hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from. I've spent way too long on this video anyways and just needed to get it out there. Anyways, enjoy hearing me make Call of Duty Zombies work in the film industry. Episode 1. Start out nice and simple. We can either call it Group 935 or Night of the Undead. Give it a title where it feels important to the map, but also makes people who don't know what's happening intrigued with it. Set up the world. World War II, late 1940s. Group 935 are doing experiments on teleportation and making weapons to help the Germans win the war. Randomly, on one experiment on teleportation, they create the first zombie. Transition to a plane in the air with a group of unknown Marines getting ready for a mission. Plane gets hit and goes down. The cutscene from Nocturne Totem plays to give it that edgy vibe. It also sets up the rest of the episode. 4 Marines see a horde of the undead coming towards them and they rush into the nearest building and bunker down. Here what we can do is introduce the environment of the map. So we have, we have walleyes that just seem a little odd. You have this box that somehow randomly gives you a weapon, and then it's just edgy, basically. I would say out of these, this is the hardest one to deal with because of trying to figure out how long it should be with the content. So with, it's starting out simple, but you can probably lean towards the Group 935 side of things and kind of dealing with that. And then like the second half to the quarter is the map, because eventually those Marines do die at the end. So it's kind of pointless to just be like, all right, half done, or 25% scientists, 75 surviving the horde's done. It feels odd. Honestly, out of all of these, episode 1's kind of the hardest. You can obviously expand on it as it goes down. Episode 2, Verrucht, or just call it Asylum or something. Episode starts with someone in the OSS. This person would be Cornelius Purnell. We'll find out about him more later. He's looking at files about recent Group 935 activities and worries about the group losing control of their experiments. So he decides to stop the investigation on the group and gets the US spy out of the group. He rounds up some of the best Marines that are out there. This being one John Banana, Smokey, Paxton Gunner Ridge, and the one and only Hank Dempsey to get the spy out. Cut to the asylum where Peter McCain, the spy, is found out and is imprisoned by Group 935. Eventually, the zombie horde start attacking and take over the asylum. Peter is able to escape during this chaos, and then it'd be cool to have a shot of Peter turning off the power as his hand gets ripped off of his body. His fate being unknown. If you don't want his fate unknown and you want to see him running away, I think something that actually worked pretty well was in the end of My Bloody Valentine, where Axel, he loses his arm, we'll say it that way, and he rushes into the cave holding his numb of a hand, just running away. I think that would be cool to have, just him running away into the fields of the unknown, just to be like, oh yeah, he survived. He's gonna be like mentally messed up, but he survived. Cut to the group of soldiers heading towards the asylum. Make the Marines that are there likable and human, so give them interesting details about them so they're not just one-sided characters. The Marines arrive at the asylum when all of a sudden they're divided into 2 groups. This would be the start of Verrucht. They fight for their survival. John and Smokey are killed, sadly. Then we can have shots of Gunner and Dempsey kind of fighting off the hordes, and then eventually fade to black. Later, a small group of German soldiers are going to the asylum to see what happened there and see if there were any survivors. They find the one and only Tank Dempsey, still alive and kicking. They take him for experiments. After Dempsey is taken away, we see Gunner survive, and he leaves the asylum to go back and report to Cornelius Purnell about the situation. End of episode. Episode 3, Swamp of the Dead. Episode starts in the past in Siberia, where Richthofen, the main German scientist, by the way, is doing experiments on the exposure of element 115 on people. We follow him throughout his tests introducing other main characters in this, as in Takio, Nikolai, and then eventually we'll get the name of one Pablo. He mostly talks himself in his entry logs and talks about being interested in a Garthan device. We don't really know what it is at this point in the story of the show, but throughout we're going to slowly learn more about it. Eventually, while experimenting with Pablo is killed. We'll explain that in a minute, I think. And then after this, Richtofen blames Dr. Yina for this failure. Eventually, we see that Dempsey is brought to the facility to be the third human experiment. Later, we see that the experiments of cloning the three didn't go as planned and failed. By the way, they're cloning people. We see the aftermath of the exposure of 115 on the test subjects. Since these are the main characters and they are basically stereotypes, it's best to understand that how they were affected, so they do seem one-sided because element 115 kind of messes you up. So it's an easy way just to be like, oh yeah, we need a stereotypical American, stereotypical alcoholic Russian, a honorable Japanese soldier, and then a crazy German dude. Just helps explain everything together and why they're going to work together. Eventually, we see Richtofen managing to get a piece of the three souls, including his, through the elemental shard, which is important to the story. It's also one piece of the Agarthan device, so we're going to slowly see each piece of the Agarthan device throughout the show. We get a scene where Dr. Yina informs Richtofen that he's being sent back to Germany due to his actions at the Siberian outpost. In this conversation, Yina tells Richtofen that the elemental shard is being sent to Division 9. It's the Japanese version of Group 935, basically, which is also important for this episode. Cut to the present with the Ultimus crew, otherwise known as Richtofen, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takio, teleporting to a Division 9 facility to get his diary, which is important to the story. The crew asking why they're here, Richtofen simply tells them that he needs to grab something important when they deal with the undead. Richtofen grabs his diary and then they teleport to the Doris facility to teleport to the moon. While they deal with the hordes at Doris, one of the characters, not Richtofen, overcharges the teleporter with the Wunderwaffe, which is the weapon of Shinonuma. You can have a shot of one of the characters that's not Richtofen get the Wunderwaffe from the box, and then we also see it in action. And then we can have a shot of Richtofen yelling at that character that they're dumb and whatnot, which kind of makes the hierarchy of Richtofen over everyone else. And then after they teleport, that's the end of the episode. Episode 4, The Giant. The episode starts like the last episode in the past. Dr. Edward Richtofen and Dr. Schuster are doing experiments on teleportation with walnuts. This test, unlike the others, actually works. They get amazing results, leading to the point of Richtofen and Schuster telling Dr. Maxis about their experiment, when they get disappointing results for Maxis, that being him yelling at them. After their talk with Maxis, Richtofen and Schuster decide to continue their work on experimentation in secret. Also here, we can eventually bring in Samantha into the story since she is a main character in this. At least in season 1, she's a main character, so at least bring her in at some parts. And then also from here, we start to know the background of what's happening here, and then what leads up to what's going to happen at the end of season 1. Richtofen and Schuster are continuing their experience on teleportation, and now they have moved onto human experiments, with Richtofen being the subject. By the way, this is going to be the longest episode so far, because there's so much to do with this. As the experiment starts, the teleporter goes off. We follow Richtofen on his journey as he's teleported. First, he seems to have teleported in a dark space. Here we can have some light, or just having complete darkness, up to whoever. As he gets a light going, he sees a pyramid. This would be the MPD. As he touches it, he gets shocked by it and gets intrigued by it. He starts talking to himself, thinking that Dr. Schuster is with him. Here we can add the corruption of the dark ether onto him and add the Shadow Man into this. So get like a tab of the later season's lore and get it mixed into this now. Eventually he's teleported to a jungle. This would be the location of Shangri-La, where he would meet the people of the area, and we'll cut to there. We'll leave that there, mostly because Shangri-La is its own map, and we'll get into that story of what happens there when we get there. Cut to Schuster looking for Richtofen and starts to record an entry log, when all of a sudden Richtofen comes back through and tells Schuster all about his journey. We cut to the future where Maxis and Richtofen are doing experiments on, yet again, teleportation. The experiments that Maxis and Richtofen have with this are not working. Eventually, Maxis uses Samantha's dog, Fluffy, for an experiment, because we needed these people to seem like bad people. So he gets the dog into this test, and they activate the teleporter, and then Fluffy is teleported. But Fluffy don't come back. I don't think Samantha taught the dog how to come back. On the next test that they do, Fluffy comes back, not looking like Fluffy at all. Fluffy is more demonic than dog.
Twisted and evil.
this would obviously become the idea of the Hellhound, and we get to follow what the Hellhound does in Shinonuma. So we have the idea of the Hellhound in Shinonuma. I forgot to bring that up, sorry. But then here we get the more background of it and why the Hellhound is the Hellhound. Eventually, Samantha comes rushing in, wondering what on earth happened to her dog, as one person would. And then eventually during this, Richtofen is able to trick Maxis and Samantha into the teleporter. This would be the twist of the episode of where Richtofen eventually becomes fully bad, and he teleports them somewhere else. You really need to know, Maxis is teleported between dimensions into what is called the Crazy Place, and then Samantha is teleported to the moon, where the MPD is. We'll get to that in a minute. We cut to a shot of the Doris facility in chaos as the zombie hordes attack the scientists stationed there. Here we can do, in the radios that is, we have dialogue of specific people in, like, you know, taking capsule pills to not turn into zombies. Then we also have Dr. Porter there, who decides to take the rope. We can kind of push towards the idea that he does use the rope, but it's not super important to see. Richtofen eventually awakens his 3 test subjects to help him survive and work on his master plan, which we'll get to. And then the episode ends with the crew on the teleporter fighting off the hordes as they teleport away. And I think a really cool way to end this episode is once they teleport, it is the Doris, the main teleporter, where like pack-a-punches, and we get a steady shot of nothing, and we just hear the hordes of the undead just roaming around, moaning, and then just to implicate that they're gone, and then just cut the black. I think that would be a cool way to end the episode. Episode 5. Cinema of the Dead. Episode starts in the past, again for storytelling. We follow Maxis doing experiments on the undead to control them. We see that he's trying to brainwash them to make the process easier. As he's recording his progress, we cut to a zombie and its handler. The zombie lashes out and injures the handler and Sophia. So as I don't know real quick, Sophia is Maxis's love interest-ish. His, what's the word? She's his receptionist or something like that. I'll put it up here because I can't remember at this point. Eventually, the zombie and the handler are killed to not infect anyone. Next, we should have a scene of Sophia either talking into a radio or a journal, whatever, or writing it down as she kind of speaks out loud about how no one knows that she was bitten during the incident, so it kind of keeps it kind of a mystery, works either way. During this, she talks about her symptoms that she's gotten from the incident. These can be standard zombie infected symptoms. That's what they are basically, you know, you got a fever, you get it. After this, we hear that Maxis wants to talk to Sophia in his personal chambers, or whatever, his office, that's what it is. She goes into his office while he's making an entry point in his journal. He talks to Sophia and somehow knows that she was attacked during the incident. And while during this, you know, we can have a shot of him having her drink tea. So if we do that, you know, as they're talking, then she's poisoned, and then Maxis is doing his whole, it's all for the greater good, whatever. Later on, what we can do is like have either a crossfade or something, but then we see a shot of Maxis turning on a machine where we see that the machine's starting to talk like Sophia, because it is Sophia. She is turned into a machine. You could also have a scene or a shot of him taking out her brain and putting it into the machine to kind of pinpoint what is happening, just to kind of give it the more edgier vibes of what is being created. And then cut to the present in the 60s, where our heroes, or just Ultimates, I'll call them Ultimates from now on. We see Ultimates teleporting to the facility in the 60s, where it's basically abandoned and destroyed. During this, we hear Richtofen talking to himself in his recorder. This can be the Kino Jotun intro log that we get for the cutscene for the game, or for the map. Just that, basically, I think would set him perfectly while they're kind of looking and figuring out what to do. During this, we see that Richtofen has lost his diary and he can't find it because he dropped it off at the Doris facility. It'll come back into play later. While they're at the Kino facility, they are attacked by the undead, and they have to fight their way out. During this, I feel like we should see the Black Ops 1 weapons being used just to make it more closer to the game, make it seem like we're pulling it from the game. It would make it more interesting. Then also, I feel like, mostly with Kino, because Kino is an important map to a lot of the zombies community. I feel like, especially with this one, we kind of do a joke with the 3 meteors, and then like our characters interact with them, and then after they interact with the meteors, they all kind of have their own thing about it, and then that's and then 115 starts playing. I think that would be a cool idea, kind of because a lot of people grew up on Kino, especially getting the 3 rocks and then jamming out to a really good song. I feel like we can implicate that in a way while they're fighting the hordes. Then eventually, while they're fighting through the hordes, they find what is called a lunar lander, and then they get on it and escape. And then that is the end of the episode. Episode 6, 5, or Penta, something that corresponds with the Map 5. Episode starts in the present during the space race. We follow Cornelius Pornell in his pursuit to create a new R&D department called the Broken Arrow. I feel like if we start adding this layer of Cornelius Pornell, we introduced him in Verrückt, so if we bring him back throughout, I feel like it'd be interesting to kind of set his character up for Season 4, which would be Black Ops 4. He talks to Robert McNamara and eventually gets the funding due to the ideology of Samantha being a big threat to the world. I feel like here you can introduce Samantha into this more. You don't really, for those that haven't ever played the games, they wouldn't really understand what Samantha's point is with where she's at, but we'll ease that up in Moon and answer questions that needed to be answered by the end. During this, or just sometime after the talk with McNamara, we see scientists working on their own projects with 115 and the undead. Dr. Schuster and Dr. Lehman, he's a new character, and Colonel Sawyer, also new, are discussing the possibilities of the improved way to make the undead work. And by this point, since it's the 60s, we're introducing the idea of chemical warfare into a more modern era. Lehman, for some reason, gets upset about their talk and kind of lashes at Colonel Sawyer and saying that that's not the plan with the gas, is to just drop it in Russia and just end it. After Sawyer kind of leaves this conversation, Schuster talks to Lehman about his actions. Lehman brings up he was following Richthofen's diary, which is a big point of he's infected by the Doc Etha, and he go crazy. From here, we can cut to Robert McNamara talking to himself and then being overcome by the idea of a greater evil than what the world is dealing with right now, and him kind of processing what's happening. And then from here, we can get him also talking about how he is setting up a meeting with Fidel Castro, as well as JFK, or Nixon, and himself. I feel like this would be the first episode where it would be hard to deal with this for side plot before I continue. I feel like starting with Black Ops 1, you get to what is called the celebrity characters, where it's just different, it's a different crew that you play as. I feel like starting with 5, it's going to be hard to kind of figure out how we deal with, like, as in how they look, like character-wise. It's like it's gonna be hard because they all have their unique ways of looking. This is one of the big red flags that I see with this, is how are we gonna do it? Obviously, we can do the whole deepfake situation, but obviously that's still a learning curve, so it's gonna be hard to try and deal with that. Anyways, let's continue. We cut to the labs underneath the Pentagon. Fun fact, there are labs underneath the Pentagon, apparently. We see Lehman being kind of crazier than usual than his lashing out. Schuster kind of goes to see Lehman to see what's going on when he releases the 115 gas into the Pentagon facility, which is not good. As he's releasing the gas, Lehman kind of takes the coward's way out. We'll say it that way, so I don't get demonetized. He's gone from the world. Let's put it that way. We see Schuster go to his knees, realizing his fate and kind of processing his life. Then while we see that, we see a weird scientist pop out of a purple teleporter and release the zombie test subjects into the facility. And then from here, we cut to the 5 cutscene, and then the start of 5 finally happened. We follow the 5 crew as they survive the hordes and capture the weird scientist Pentagon Thief, which is what he's called. We'll find out his name next episode. So he is weird purple teleporter Pentagon Thief science guy. That's his name now for this episode. And then from here we can see the aftermath of what happened as the Pentagon Thief is given to Purnell and Broken Arrow. If we don't want to do that, that's totally fine. We can just have just a shot of everyone kind of surviving through the hordes in the Pentagon. But if it's not good, at the end of the episode we can get just the crew being overrun by the hordes, and then their fates are determined by the audience. Either way works realistically in the storyline. They survive and history goes out. It works either way, as long as it's interesting and makes a story cool. Episode 7, Ascension. I think keeping it the name of Ascension would be cool. Episode starts in the present, again in the 60s, because this is during the Cold War and the space race. Now, instead of in the US, we are now in Russia. We follow Dr. Yina and Dr. Gersh, who are 2 scientists. We follow Dr. Yina with Richthofen. Now he is in Russia now with Dr. Gersh, by the way. These 2 scientists are discussing a weird transmission that they discovered came from the Siberian outpost, which for those that don't know, the Siberian outpost was the one that Richthofen got kicked out of. It's basically abandoned at this point, but somehow someone is surviving there, and they survived for a couple years. At this point, Gersh and Yina are discussing the Garthin device, and that this mysterious person who is at the Siberian outpost can make it for them, but needs one thing. And this is also where we can introduce the Black Ops 3 lore, by the way. The blood of a ancient creature, which would be an apothecon. During this, the mention of Richthofen, giving the Americans and the Russians the deal of Group 935 stuff, I think would also be benefactor to kind of make the point across that that's how they got all their knowledge of 115 and Richtofen's diary. From here also we see how the Agarthan blood reacts, and this makes Dina and Gersh discuss projects with the blood. Here, technically in the story, they promised the person in Siberia that they would give the blood to them, but after doing like a few small tests, they kind of realized the possibilities with it, and they decided to kind of keep it. Here we introduce Yuri Zavoisky, who helps Gersh make what is so-called the Gersh device. We'll find more about that later in the episode. And then eventually, as he's helping with it, he gets kicked off the project by Gersh. Yuri starts to secretly do experiments on the Gersh device and uses Richtofen's diary to help him. If you couldn't tell, just like what happened with Dr. Lehman, Yuri is eventually corrupted by the Dark Ether, and we kind of follow him on this now. And then if you couldn't tell, Samantha is in his head, not the Shadow Man like Richtofen. He completes the Gersh device and teleports Gersh into it, as one evil scientist would do to someone that has wronged them. Eventually, Samantha commands Gersh to also go in the teleporter. Obviously, he follows his orders and he goes through. Here's where, if people can't pinpoint stuff, Yuri Zavoisky is the Pentagon thief from the last episode. So as we see him go to the teleporter, he's actually going to the Pentagon and messing up stuff there. Make people realize what's happening with the Pentagon thief and give the character more than just a man who steals your weapons. Anyways, eventually Ultimus shows up at the Ascension facility. They hear Gersh's voice at this point. For those that don't know, Gersh is in a dimension between life and death. He's not a ghost, he's an orb. Call of Duty logic. Eventually the four help Gersh get his freedom, and then they eventually grab Richtofen's diary, which is at the Ascension facility. And then after freeing Gersh, they also get sucked into the teleporter. Then this would be the end of the episode after they get sucked in to the teleporter. As well, if you really wanted to, you can end here with them being in a dark room, which helps with bringing it to the next episode, and then kind of figuring out what to do next. Or you can just end it like Doris or the Giant episode, where once they teleport, it's just steady shot of just the environment happening around them, and then just end it that way. Works either way. Episode 8. Call of the Dead. Episode starts with a shadowed figure doing research for a movie. The figure is somehow able to get some files on Group 935 and is intrigued by what he sees. He learns where some of the research that he found happened and talks to a producer about his movie idea. The producer, while in this meeting, asks him what the name should be, since it's just basically a rough draft. The shadowed figure comes into the light. It's George A. Romero, and he simply says, Call of the Dead. I feel like that would just be a perfect way to start an episode, especially with someone like George A. Romero. He's made a lot of movies that have been notorious and revolutionary. Night of the Living Dead's really good. Dawn of the Dead was really good, and then Day of the Dead is my favorite out of his trilogy. I enjoyed it so much. Anyways, so the next scene that we get is they're in Siberia, where the map takes place, and we see what production is like on the film. I think that'd be very interesting, since there's not much talk about the production. Like in story-wise, there's not a lot about the production of the movie. It just kind of happens, and then it goes into the cutscene, and it goes into the map. So I feel like if we add that context behind the scenes would be cool. Here's also where we see our four antagonists for the map. We have Danny Trejo, Michael Rooker, Robert Englund, and the beautiful Sarah Michelle Gellar. Wait. Huh. Well, I wouldn't know who would have written beautiful. Man, that's just weird. Huh. Yeah, I had no idea who wrote that, man. That's just weird. Who wrote my script? Oh, it's my name next to it. Oh. Anyways, let's just continue. It would be cool to have some interaction between them of just talking, maybe kind of complaining about the weather conditions or like their wardrobe, because they're in Siberia and it's cold. We'll just call it that. And it makes sense for some of them, especially Sarah Michelle Gellar, since she's wearing literally not the clothes that you would wear this type of weather. I mean, I personally find it chill. I mean, I understand if it's a whole, she's the female of the group, she has to look hot. Mr. Romero, I'll call him Mr. Romero because I'm fancy like that. He understands what they're going with, it's called, but he doesn't care because he's the director. He's just like, all right, point, camera, action. Also, I think it would be cool to treat him like how he was in person. Like, if you look at any of the behind-the-scenes footage or any of the the documentaries about George Romero, everyone says that he's like a nice guy. So I think we could also add that into it too. From here, we get the cutscene from Call of the Dead play out. So they're in the middle of a take, then Michael Rooker messes up, and then he starts to get everyone back into position, and then the first zombie shows up, and then, well, if you've watched the cutscene, it all goes down from there. So I think it would be cool to introduce it like that. I feel like, again, with this episode, it's going to be hard. One, I feel like it would be hard to get the 4 main characters into the TV show. Well, one, they're big money actors, so it makes sense that's gonna be hard to kind of get them back. It would just be hard to, and I feel like trying to get George Romero or someone like George Romero into it would also be kind of disgraceful under his name. Modern technology can do stuff, but also, again, it would feel like disrespecting George Romero. So just pointing that out. Also, during the episode, treat it like the map again. You know, have George walk around saying his line, you know, maybe, you know, do the whole thing of like someone accidentally shoots the zombie and it goes through the zombie and it hits George and he does this whole anger thing. I think that would be cool. Then also, you know, having the wonder weapons like Scavenger, the VR11 in it, I feel like would be really cool. Just follow the Easter egg. And then obviously we follow the actors through their survival of the hordes when they stumble upon the door, or they stumble upon a door, and then someone kind of hits it, and then turns out that Ultimus is behind it, which would correspond with the last episode, obviously. And then here also, I think it would be cool to have some of the Ultimus talking, or like what they talk about behind the door. Just make it weird, make it funny, kind of how it is in the map.
Ah! I'm blind! I'm blind! In my eyes! Holy shitballs. Me too. What did you do, Richtofen?
I did nothing. There's a light switch. Oh, I think I found a lever. Perhaps this will turn on the light.
Oh! Ah! Let go! That's not a lever! Richtofen!
Shh! Did you hear that?
Oh, sounded like someone outside. Hey, you! Hey! I need vodka!
Hello? Can you help us? There must be a blown fuse or something. It's dark in here.
Oh, man. That's wet.
But obviously, so they're here for the Vril device. I think here would be cool to, obviously throughout this, there'll be drops. Like, they'll show the drops. I think here, if they touch the death machine, it does turn into the Wonder Waff. I think that would be cool. It would also be a little confusing, but I feel like just overall, it would be unique and adds that layer of, oh yeah, this is what happens when you beat the Easter egg for the first time, is you get the Waff. I think that would be cool. And then obviously after this, once Ultimus teleports out, the 4 actors are left to die by the hordes. Again, you can either show that or just let it assume by fate. Works either way. Just leave him to die. That's my unanimous decision. Just leave him to die. Because that's, I mean, obviously that's how they do in the story, but also kind of think about how zombie movies are overall done. Usually there are some survivors, but also it would work under the ideology of the zombie apocalypse of there is no such thing as a happy ending, it's just the last survivor, and then at the end, no one survives. I think that'd be cool. Episode 9. Shangri-La, or call it Paradise. One of the two would be a cool name. In this episode, we follow Richtofen in the past when he was teleported to Shangri-La, the village, or the jungle, either way. Here he meets the residents of Shang. I'm going to call it Shang for short. Kind of have it how we had it in Darius, or the giant episode, where he was teleported there. We see him meet them, and then here we extend that. So he sees them, he talks to them, then he teaches them the ways of modern technology in a way, and electricity. And from here he's able to manipulate them into helping them on the long run. That's the easiest way to explain it. Cut to 2 explorers, Brock and Gary. These 2 are just random characters. It would be interesting to follow them on the way. Here they are looking for something in the Himalayas. Eventually, Brock explains that he wants to find Agartha and prove of its existence. Here we also can see he hasn't been manipulated by the Dark Ether, but he's getting to that weird part of characters wanting to go to the Ether, and curiosity kills the cat kind of idea where they're intrigued by this and they want to reach it, but they don't really understand the consequences of trying to find it. Eventually, they get stuck in a time loop where they're getting chased by zombies and keep dying. They get stuck in the temple, by the way. And then here you can also have the different ways of them dying to kind of prove, oh yeah, they're in the time loop. Cut to Ultimus teleporting to the village. As they fight through the hordes, they help Brock and Gary through the temple's traps to get the focusing stone. After they get the stone while they are teleporting, MC shoots the baby gun, the wonder weapon of the map, also known as the 3179 JGB-215. I totally didn't Google that to double check that. Anyway, so he shoots it while they're teleporting, trying to kill a zombie, and then they are not going to their original destination, and they end up at the Pentagon. Obviously, I think during this, it'll be a funny scene of Richtofen kind of just being mad at Dempsey for being a complete idiot, and then just kind of doing that as they continue on their journey. Here, we can either have some zombies attack them while they're there, or not have them attack, because it's technically in the storyline that's not really what happens. They kind of quickly go from the Pentagon to Groom Lake, which we'll talk about in the next episode. And then here, if we wanted to do that way, we can have a whole thing of Samantha finding out about Ultimus being at the Pentagon, and that can also, we can have Samantha kind of telling Layman that it's like time to release the gas or something, and then that goes into 5 to connect those 2 maps together. I think that'd be cool. Episode 10. One final step, otherwise known as Moon. I feel like this one is very important. Like, the naming of it being One Small Step is perfect. So one small step is kind of referring to one, obviously the moon, and the whole ideology of one small step for man, a giant leap for mankind. I feel like that would perfectly kind of intertwine history and zombies together. It just feels right, you know? For the last time of at least this season, we start in the past, but now we are on Griffin Station, which is on the moon. Dr. Groff and Schuster are waiting for Richthofen when all of a sudden, Samantha, by the way, she's a character, is teleported to the moon on Griffin Station and runs into the MPD. Dr. Groff and Schuster are worried that they'll get in trouble with Richthofen, so they are somehow able to find where Maxis is and teleport him to the facility to get Samantha out. While Maxis is talking to his daughter, he asks her to do one small favor, and that message is kill them all. As he says that, he himself, so I don't get in trouble. And here we can see Samantha go into the MPD. Here we can see Samantha go into the MPD out of rage and anger and starts controlling the undead. And then here, obviously, for those I don't know, Maxis is alive, but not his spirit is alive, and he's roaming around the technology of Griffin Station. So I feel like here it's important to emphasize one, why Samantha is important to the story and how she's able to control the zombies. At least see her, we're tying up loose ends and answering questions they need answers to. Here we can cut to Nevada at Groom Lake Station, which is, it's not the most important thing to acknowledge, at least in this season, but at least in like season 4 with Black Ops 4, I think it would be interesting to intertwine that. Here I feel like this would be the perfect time to have some of the chatter between the main characters, especially with Richthofen when he brings up Dempsey's house.
Oh, Gypsy, I think I can see your house from here. It's on fire!
I feel like that would be a really funny idea to have when they teleport to Groom Lake. I feel like that'd be really funny. And also, you know, get that humor involved again. Immediately as they arrive, Samantha finds out where they're at and the hordes begin to attack them. Here we can have them kind of fight a little bit and like have them fight the hordes, and then kind of treat it like Moon, where when you start out on the map, it's an endless round, and then we could do something like that, and then they teleport to the moon, and then the map kind of begins. And then eventually, Samantha is able to find them again, and then the hordes attack them at the moon. We follow Ultimus as they help Richthofen fill out his grand scheme in his final plan, which would be really cool to follow. And then also, let's have the astronaut in there, because I think it'd be cool. Mostly to set up the vibe. I think before we see them teleport to the moon, I feel like we could do something like in The Thing, where it's just ambiance, where it's B-film, but it's important B-film. You see how abandoned the facility is. I think that'd be really cool to kind of display. And then also have the PES of the astronaut breathing in the background. That would be cool. Easter egg stuff. So, they follow Richthofen. I think here would be the most important part, to follow the Easter egg completely. Maybe not all of it. You can have, obviously, do Simon Says, that'd be cool. But especially when Richthofen is charging up the drill device, and that interaction with him and Maxis would be cool to have, while the other three are fighting the hordes somewhere else. Just to kind of separate them a little bit, so we get a one-on-one with Richthofen and getting to realize that his plan is going to be fulfilled. And then eventually, throughout as they do the Easter egg, they open up the MPD. Here we can have a scene where Richthofen kind of puts the drill device into the MPD, and then here is where him and Samantha swap souls. And then you have such a weird, goofy thing. You have Richthofen in Samantha's body and Samantha in Richthofen's body. And I think here you can have, one, obviously change all of the dialogue that Samantha usually has in the map for like the bonus points, max ammo, whatever. Have Richthofen do that, and then change the eyes from yellow to blue to kind of emphasize that we're getting a change in the show. And then from here, Maxis is somehow able to convince Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai into stopping Richthofen from living out his plan, which is to blow up the Earth. I feel like here is kind of how we end the episode, is they are able to get the rockets out and they're flying. For those that have never done the Easter egg, when you do it, there's the piano that plays. There's a piano theme that plays as you blow up the Earth. I feel like doing that would be really cool and kind of sink in the fact that something big is happening. As all that is happening, we hear, the only thing that we really hear is the PES suits breathing and going off, because obviously they're in outer space. They're on the moon, watching from the outside, watching the Earth blow up. And then have them maybe either leave it in silence or have the characters kind of talking and realizing what they've done. And then they go and teleport away. I think that would be a cool way to end the season. Let's go ahead and wrap up now. We are now slowly coming to the end of the video, but before we end, or before I finish talking to you, I think it'd be cool to talk about the green and red flags of the show. There's more good than bad, but I feel like it's important to emphasize on some of the red flags that I noticed after kind of making the script and talking about it out loud. So one big red flag that I really have is the episodes of 5 and Call of the Dead. My only problem that I have with them is trying to get actors to represent the characters themselves. One, that's a lot of money to try and get Danny Trejo, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Michael Rooker, and Robert Englund. Trying to get all of them to sign off on something like this would be, I think, hard. Maybe not too hard, but I feel like it would be more difficult to do. And then also with trying to represent George Romero would be really hard, and I also feel like it would be a little disrespectful to him and his ideology that he has created throughout the years in cinema. I think it's just a little bit too disrespectful on his name. With 5, however, I feel like there are ways that we can do that one better than Call of the Dead, but I also feel like trying to do that might be a little rough, just because from a critic standpoint, I could see people being like, that's a disrespectful way to show a character, like, from real life history, like trying to have like JFK kind of be like a stereotypical Boston, New Yorker kind of guy who just says the weirdest stuff.
Need some beans for the chowder here. Calm your liver, Mr. Wiggles. Executive Order 112477. Die!
For his character, and then Robert Nixon kind of being annoying. I can understand why people would be upset if that come into play, but I also feel like some people would just be like, oh, okay, whatever. I think another big thing is who you have on the writing team. The writing team has to be almost on the dot, because this is such a interesting story that trying to get it right would be hard. But as I said in the beginning, you have to have people who understand the story and who have played the game's maps be on this project. That's the hardest part. Like, and then I'm just gonna bring up the Halo TV show again. You know, they're deciding to follow the Silver storyline or whatever. It wasn't good. And genuinely, I was upset with the first season, and the second season's out, and it's, well, I haven't watched it because I didn't finish season 1. And then if you really wanted to get the story details with Zelensky and Blundell, that's also going to be hard because they're both game designers on their own games that they're also creating or expanding on at the moment. So just trying to get free time from people who understand what they're doing would be rough and hard. I would say the last red flag that I really have for this show is trying to get casual people into the story and trying to explain it to them in a super casual way than what it really is. Yeah, that's why before I actually was able to finish this, I wanted to make sure I watched Eruption Fang's not entire video, but at least up to 2-3 hours into it, like halfway through, is because I wanted to make sure that I got the details right. Yeah, it's very complicated because there are points where I thought I understood things, but then I keep watching and it was like, oh, I forgot that this happened before this or whatnot. Well, one, just to have the writers just watch the video and it would be fine. But also, I would say, honestly, just follow what I was saying throughout this whole video, was just treat each map respectfully and get the correct context in it. But I can see that trying to be hard and trying to get a casual person into it who has never touched zombies, basically. I feel like people who have touched zombies and understand it would enjoy this show 100% if they do it right. It's just trying to get new people into the show is going to be the biggest problem. We'll move on to green flags because there's more of them. Alright, green flags now, because I need to end on a good note. If they treat it like the games, it would be amazing. If you do each map in good detail, flawless. If you get the characters right, perfect. Treating it like the game will be fun. Treat it like somewhat of an arcade shooter. One thing I will say, don't do it like, say, House of the Dead, that arcade game or whatever. Editor me will figure it out. Those arcade games, I think it was House of the Dead, where there was that movie, and all they did really was have one person in frame shooting in slow-mo, and then the next scene after the next part of the scene would just be the zombie getting blown up. Don't do it that way. Make it feel like it is important that we're seeing everything at once. And what I mean by that is, if you're gonna have a zombie that's gonna die, unless it's just a quick thing, have the characters actually kill them on screen. Don't keep it separated, keep it all fused together. I feel like there's more of importance to it. It just feels better to me, seeing everything all at once. So the big general idea is keeping it like the game, but sub-green flags, I guess, is Easter egg songs, weapons, wonder weapons, the banter against everyone, or against the characters. You put that in together, it's just gonna make this feel feel like zombies. Thank you guys for watching this video. I really tried to get this one out pretty good. I started writing this on Valentine's Day, and then I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll start it, whatever. And then like 2 days later, I was casually watching a Mr. T-Lexify video. That or it was his Lex Lounge video. Both are good channels, by the way. It was him watching, so the video by Noble Swag, and then, you know, Lex Lounge, or Lex, I'll just call him Lex. Hi, Lex. He watched the video, and then both of them were like, oh, it'd be cool to have a show or something, or like a movie. And I'm over here like, I am making a video about this. Let's finish this out quickly. Yeah, this one took a little bit, but that's only because I had to double check everything to get my knowledge right. Because like this zombie storyline overall is one of the most confusing things out there. Ugh, too much. It is a little bit too much. I think I was able to make it feel like a show and make it more understandable to people who don't understand what's happening. You know, if this does ever become a thing and it is based off of this, no, it was me, all me. I thought about it. HBO, if you do make this project and you want to give credit, I mean, you can put my name on there. You can like maybe throw me like a couple some money on there. You know, I need to pay for college. So again, thank you for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you are new here and you want to see more, like the video and subscribe. I'm going to be trying to get a video out roughly every month, and this will be my first video in March, and then hopefully I'll see you in April. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.